Good evening. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. If anybody would like an agenda and you don't already have one, they're located right outside the glass door in the back. Before we get started, I'll ask Chairman Mayhew to please stand and lead us in the pledge.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Never. First up, we have disclosure of conflict of interest. Is there any councilor that feels they may have a conflict of interest with the vote they will take tonight?
So I wanted to put before the council the issue of Order 37, 2019. I have consulted with the city. This is the approval for funds for parking enforcement. I have consulted with the city attorney, and because this is not a benefit given to Colby, but a issue that Colby is making a donation to the city, he did not find that it was a conflict of interest, but I know this has been raised as an issue, so I wanted to put it before the council.
And that was I was also consulted with Bill Lee about that, and what Council Winifred Tate has said is absolutely correct. It is a gift that is being from Colby College to the city, not the other way around, so there is really no conflict of interest. I see no reason to not allow her to vote on this. Any other councilor?
We'll just take a vote. All in favor of allowing Councilor Tate to vote on that? Unanimous. Guess we're good. Any other conflicts of interest to disclose this evening? No. All right, we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? First up under unfinished business, Order 24, 2019.
An order providing for sale of vacant lot 38 Cary Lane. Be it hereby ordered by the Waterville City Council acting as municipal officers that a vacant lot located at 38 Cary Lane be sold to Gary Murphy in the amount of $1,500.
Move to adopt.
And second.
Is there any discussion? Any questions from the audience? Can I get a roll call, Patty?
Councilor Morris?
Yes.
Councilor Bofia?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Councilor Mayhew?
Yes.
Councilor Coelho?
Yes.
Councilor Tate?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next, under unfinished business, Order 37, 2019.
An order providing for acceptance of funds for parking enforcement. Be it hereby ordered by the Waterville City Council acting as municipal officers that the city accepts the amount of $10,000 from Colby College with the understanding that said amount be used to fund a part-time person to do parking enforcement for a period up to 1 year.
Move to adopt.
And second.
I would just like to once again thank Colby College for giving us this donation. In the future, we've looked at the numbers, we've talked to the chief. Once we are able to get to our budget and actually approve a budget, the city can approve funds to pay for this ourselves. That funding will be a self-funded position. We've looked at the numbers of what we get for parking fees and fines, so it's not going to be something that affects the bottom line, but this allows us to at least do something in the immediate while we are searching for a long-term solution and looking at a long-term plan. So I would just once again encourage the council to accept these funds. Any comments or questions from the public? Could I get a roll call, please?
Councilor Morris?
Yes.
Councilor Bofia?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Councilor Mayhew?
Yes.
Councilor Coelho?
Yes.
Councilor Tate?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next, we have Ordinance 38, 2019.
An ordinance providing for fines for parking violation increase. Be it enacted by the Waterville City Council acting as municipal officers that Article 3 of the traffic ordinance be amended to increase all fines for parking violations to $25 as shown on the attached, except for the handicap violation fine, which shall increase from the current $50 to $200.
Move to adopt.
And second.
Any discussion from the council? Mike?
we could, we'd like to suggest an amendment, because what we didn't realize when we were here the last time is that our current parking fines double when they're not paid after 14 days, so the $10 fine became $20
Yes.
after 14 days, but the way the ordinance is written now, that doubling doesn't happen, so our suggestion for an amendment, if you want to consider it, is if the fines remain unpaid for 14 days or more, then, or after 14 days, that it be increased to 40, from 25 to 40, so it'd be a $15 increase if that ticket is not paid within 14 days.
I'll make a motion to amend ordinance 38-2019 to reflect the double increase
Oh,
after 14
hang on, that
days.
wasn't a double.
It's actually not a double increase, but it's an increase after 14 days to $40 for all fees except handicap parking.
40, okay.
From 25 to
So
40.
there's a,
25 to 40?
What happens to the handicap park?
hang on, we need to get, hang on, there's a motion that needs to be made here.
He made the motion. I'll second the motion so we can talk about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
The $200 fine.
Again, from my point of view, the fine for the handicap is high enough, but that's just my own personal view.
I would say the 14 days is maybe not quite enough. You know, I would say after 30 days. I mean, two weeks to go in and pay a fine for some people. You know, so I think we should give them a leeway of 30 days. I don't know how it's-
That sounds reasonable.
Would anybody consider 20 days and doubling rather than doing 15?
Yeah. I think that would be reasonable as well.
Do we,
20 days and then double the fine, not add 15.
Okay.
Well, we
Could you,
Part of the problem that Chief Massey is explaining to me is that at the 30-day mark, we already send them a letter as part of the set process, so we'd have to push that date back too. So maybe, as you said, something between 14 and 30, but
Yeah, we do. Make them, you want to make a re-motion for?
well, so we have to first vote on the amendment.
that's right.
So
So
vote on that.
we're going to vote on the amendment as it was, which was 14 days.
Yeah,
And so if we're going to change it,
25 to 40.
we want to vote no.
Correct.
Right. So the motion is to have the late fee to $40 kick in after 14 days. So do we want to
As
vote
is
on
right
that
now.
amendment?
So we have to vote on that
Let's
first.
vote on that now.
And remember, if you want to discuss an alternative, you vote no. All in favor? Okay.
What is
Opposed?
Okay. So do we have a new amendment to?
So I would move to amend it to do 21 days, define doubles.
Buying doubles, or it goes to 40?
Let's just
Doubles.
Double it.
25 to 50.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Now discussion on that motion to amend.
I would just like to clarify that it's the 25 to 50, and I believe also that 200 is quite a substantial fine, and so my opinion is that we leave that at 200.
Yeah,
That was the intent of the amendment, yes.
that's an agreement.
Okay. Is there any questions or discussion from the council first? Okay, if you have a question from the audience, we ask you to come up to the podium, state your name, where you live, and what you have to say or your question, please.
Hello, Dan Libby, Ward 4. I just wanted to ask if anybody, so if this is enacted, would anybody prior to this enaction be grandfathered under the old law? In other words, if they get a ticket 2 days before this goes into effect, are they going to pay the old fine or are they going to pay the new fine? I just want, is it a going forward fine or are people grandfathered?
It would
Thank
be
you.
a going forward fine.
All right, great, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Being handicapped myself, I have a placard. I feel strongly that if somebody, I don't care who it is, on good days, I don't use it, but when I need it, it's there. I believe they should be doubled. If somebody is caught in a handicap parking place without either a placard or a plate. That's just my opinion. It irritates me when I see somebody that doesn't have that, and it's very easily obtainable from your physician, your PCP, whatever, to get that. So, my opinion, that fine should be doubled. Thank you.
Just to be clear, Bob, it's a $200 fine if you're caught parking in a handicap spot as it is. What we're saying is that fine won't double after 30 days or 21 days.
He wants it to be $400.
Who's my counselor? Where's Julian Payne, Ward 5. I was all for the fines increasing drastically, but my concern is if it doubles, is there a point that people who are really struggling won't be able to meet that demand? I mean, is there any provisions they can come with prescription bills or their rent's not paid? Because you're kind of in a situation of trying to get blood from a stone at that point. And what happens after the second time? They haven't paid it once it's doubled. What happens at that point? Because, you know, $50 to a lot of people is prescription and rent. I really thought at first, yeah, really hammer them hard, but once they're falling behind on paying that at that point, you know, everyone knows how that goes, you know, trying to enforce it. So, yeah, and I'm wondering what other communities have for provisions and what they do to address that. Thank you.
Chief? Yeah.
After we issue a parking ticket currently, they have 14 days to pay that ticket. If they don't, it doubles. At the 30-day mark, we send them a letter telling them that their fine has doubled and that they have 30 days to pay it. After that, we issue them a summons. And I have no mechanisms, unless they can show when they get the ticket that they should not have gotten it.
So there's no appeal process for financial hardship or?
There is none.
Go ahead, Sid.
So Chief, this is ordinance for parking is very similar to other police departments. Even on the 14-day, it's similar to other departments as far as doubling the fine for parking. In your opinion, and from your
There are
research.
the agencies, yes. That's the motivator, to get them to pay.
Correct. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
I guess what I would say is maybe this isn't the time to hash out all the details about how somebody might be able to appeal a fine, so perhaps the parking committee can chat about this again and see if there are circumstances in which we would forgive a fine if somebody can demonstrate a real hardship or, you know, what. So,
Right, it
So they can
probably
meet-
warrants a further discussion.
they can meet and discuss it, and if they decide they want to send something to the council, they can. But
Yes.
I would say tonight, let's just vote on what we're.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, okay. All right, so, okay. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, I'm Sandy Sullivan from Ward 5. I just have a question. I have seen the ad advertising for the parking person. What area are they patrolling? Are we talking about parking fines for the whole city or the downtown and the concourse, or where are we even talking about?
The parking fines would be citywide. Obviously, they would be applicable for a time violation downtown or a handicap, just as well as they would be in one of the outlying malls. And the parking enforcement officer will concentrate downtown. It doesn't make sense to have that person go to other areas. It doesn't have the density. So they would primarily concentrate in the downtown area, and the officers would do some of the outlying areas. We would still, police would still issue parking tickets.
Okay,
Okay.
great. All right, so we're going to take a vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? So that was unanimous. Can I get a motion to move as amended, please?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Can I get a roll call?
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Bofia?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Counselor Mayu?
Yes.
Counselor Coelho?
Yes.
Counselor Tate?
Yes.
Counselor Thomas?
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Just to be clear, the fines are doubled, and the time period?
21 days.
21 days.
21.
Yep.
All right, we're going to move on to new business. Are you ready, Patty?
Oh, I'm ready.
Resolution 40, 2019.
A resolution providing for appointing a member to the Fair Hearing Authority. Be it resolved by the City Council acting as municipal officers that Robert Veer be appointed to the Fair Hearing Authority.
Move to adopt.
And second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Bob. Next, Resolution 41, 2019.
A resolution providing for referral to the Planning Board. Be it resolved by the Waterville City Council acting as municipal officers that in accordance with Article 7, Section 7.1 of the zoning ordinance, a proposal to amend the zoning map is hereby referred to the Planning Board for a public hearing and recommendation.
Move to adopt.
And second.
Discussion? Questions? All in favor? Bill? You in favor? Sorry, I just didn't catch you. Okay. Next is Order 42, 2019.
Move to read by title only.
And second.
All in favor?
An order providing for approval of forfeiture.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Order 43, 2019.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
An order providing for approval of forfeiture.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Discussion. Counselor?
What are you gonna do with the 2003 Jeep?
This particular vehicle is not in very good shape, so we'll probably just sell it out for parts. Sometimes they're just not worth doing anything else with. You have to put in too much money to get them to a condition where you might try to sell them for a profit, so we just sell them to junkyard.
Great. Anybody else? All right, all in favor? Next, Ordinance 44, 2019.
An ordinance providing for amendment to the General Assistance Ordinance. Be it enacted by the Waterville City Council acting as municipal officers as follows, that revisions to the General Assistance Ordinance as required by state law and as completed by General Assistance Administrator Linda Fossa are hereby approved.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mike, is he at the podium?
Just a brief introduction. All towns and cities in Maine are required to have an ordinance, general assistance ordinance, to handle cases that come in from people who need help, and Waterville's no different. So we take usually the model that Maine Municipal Association provides for an ordinance, but we have some unique pieces to that. So every 2 or 3 years, the state makes changes in law regarding general assistance, so we have to come before you to have revisions made. That's the case here. Fortunately, the ordinance has an appendix, which the council a few years ago allowed the General Assistance Administrator, Linda, to update, because the state in that appendix provides certain levels for heating assistance, food, electricity, so on. And those amounts can go up or down year by year. So we make those changes on our own, but the changes here are within the body of the ordinance. The ordinance is 100 pages long, which is why we didn't make paper copies for you. And I'm glad to answer any questions. Of course, Linda can answer questions better than I can, but that just gives you a brief rundown of what this ordinance is about. It's something we need to have by law, and it provides them direction on how to administer.
Any questions or discussion? Okay.
Before we end, though, We recognized Linda Voss at the last meeting for her 38 years of service, and I wanted to take time tonight to introduce Denise Murray. And Denise has 28 years working with Linda in general assistance. She'll be a very, very capable replacement or new GA administrator for the city of Waterville, so I'm very happy that Denise Murray is going to join our team.
Thank you. All right, we're going to vote on the ordinance. All in favor? That was unanimous. Next, we have a discussion item regarding the location of city council meetings. Patty, you might give me some direction. I've never opened a discussion item before.
Right. Well, normally, it's a case where anything on the agenda has an action associated with it. Sometimes, or most of the time, discussion items happen under the manager's report, but I got a request from counselors to put this on the agenda as a discussion item, so here we are. I think I provided you with a written history of the work that we did once we knew we were going to have to leave the old council chamber. We did quite an extensive search of other places, and very, very, very difficult. Well, I don't think we can find another room like this that's reliable every single Tuesday. Because once budget starts in the first week of March, we will be meeting every single Tuesday until June. Either it's going to be a council meeting one Tuesday, following Tuesday budget. Council meeting, budget. And so during the springtime, your Tuesdays are pretty well tied up.
Councilor Mayhew.
Just to reiterate on what was said about this discussion, it was brought to my attention there are several wards at city councils that have had correspondence from constituents about having this discussion, and we felt that it was pertinent to have that discussion here today regarding those sentiments. So this is the reason why we're having these discussions, because there are several wards with constituents that have concerns, and we want to provide an airing of that if they are here, or if somebody have thoughts through correspondence, through email. So this is the basis of this forum tonight.
Okay, I guess, is there any other counselors that have discussion on this?
No, I've had several people that reached out to me, and I said, I'm more than happy to have the conversation and, hear what you have to say, and if it's new, then fantastic, but
Great.
Certainly welcome to have any conversation people want to have.
Great. All right, I'd just remind people we are not taking a vote on anything tonight. This is purely a discussion. We ask you to keep your comments within several minutes. What?
Comments from councils? I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
Comment from that's just to clarify how I feel about the possible thoughts on where the council meetings are. I know there are several different kinds of outline thoughts, but I do want to say that I will, I want to let the council know that I'm very much for the consensus of what the council wants. I will say that out of Ward 4, I have not heard personally through correspondence or through phone calls or anything from my particular constituents about wanting or yearning to want to move. I know that's different than other wards, so I will say, as far as my ward is concerned, there is nothing on that end, but there are some residents that do have concerns, and those need to be heard. I just wanted to open that up for me from a personal standpoint from my constituency. And I don't know if the other councils wanted to chime in individually about what they heard and what they thought before we get to the general public.
Nothing from my about the.
I haven't heard any complaints, and I honestly don't see a viable alternative at this point. I mean, maybe when some of the other buildings downtown complete, there might be another space, but at the moment, I just don't see where else.
Can we make comments after?
Oh, of course, yes, absolutely. This is your meeting. Yep,
Want to hear what the people have to say?
that sounds great. So again, I'm going to invite members from the audience to come up. If you have a thought or a comment, just let us know who you are. Again, just remember, this isn't really a debate. We're not taking a vote on anything tonight, so I think this is purely to hear your comments and to take those into consideration.
Hi.
Hi.
Again, my name is Sandy Sullivan, and I am from Ward 5, and I am one of those who reached out to my ward counselor. And I'm here mainly because I would like you to open the discussion and for all of you to think about the position that maybe you've put the city in by having this meeting in a privately owned building. Just as it was inappropriate for Sustainment Maine to have offices in City Hall, and they were asked to leave, or they did leave, however it happened. I believe that it is inappropriate for the city to be conducting business anywhere other than a city building. I did receive an email from Mr. Roy this week because I had also reached out to him suggesting some buildings or rooms, and he very nicely replied and told me why he thought some of those areas would not be appropriate. I do appreciate your email and your responding to me. However, I do think that some of the places I suggested would work. The Opera House, Mr. Roy said, do we want all of you on stage? Well, yeah, because if you're sitting way back there, Nick is very obvious because he sits above the rest of you. But everyone
They make me
else,
do it.
unless you speak, we don't even know you're there. And so, yeah, I have no objection to that. Everyone says the Albert Hall School is underutilized. Utilize it. They must have a cafeteria, a gym, an auditorium. I just feel it is important. When I seem to have been the person in my neighborhood that got elected by my neighbors to pass petitions, to come to with questions because they know I'm interested in what's going on. And one of the first things their concern is that Colby and Waterville is becoming synonymous. In fact, they feel like their voice is being drowned out. And I'm not criticizing Colby. I'm just saying I don't think it should be at Thomas. I don't think it should be at one of the hospitals. I think it should be in a city-owned building where any decision that's ever made can't be questioned. Thank you.
I would just point out that the previous location of the city council meetings wasn't a city-owned building. Also, I work at the Opera House, and I can tell you that as full as our schedule is, it would be impossible to give up that many Tuesdays to hold council meetings. I mean,
You all sound like a defeatist up there.
Mr. Payne?
Julian Payne, Ward 5. This really is not an anti-Colby sentiment. I was speaking at these meetings before most of you were councillors, and during the entire process of parking and this land being sold, there was never one occasion that I spoke against it. This is about image and the revitalization process and really understanding the people in the streets' view on this. The people, when you pound the pavement. Today, this came up on Facebook, Andy Roy, and it came through my feed. 100 people, he posted the question, do you believe our chambers should be in City Hall? The answer, 78% said no, 100 votes. I mean, Commissioner approach the council.
Sure. Do you know who those people are? That would be.
There's a list of all of them. You can click on the voters. So, on the actual Facebook, so you can go and see.
I mean, it's like somebody lives in Winslow.
And see. That's 100 people within 9 hours. Now, you can ignore that if you want, but I liken it, I'll give you a picture of this. Donald Trump's redesigning and shaping the future landscape of New York. There's building permits involved. There's TIFs. There's tax rates that will be set with the local council. Oh, and by the way, some of the employees also sit on the New York Council. He then moves the New York City Council into the bottom of Trump Towers. How does it look? And that's the image issue. I think the city needs to be seen as totally separate. And if you had 2 weeks to find a place, you'd do it. It wouldn't be, oh, we can't do this. City government belongs on city property, plain. I think that, and that's the basic gist of what residents are saying. I know it probably won't happen. I know you guys will sit here, but I know in the end it will hurt you more than actually trying to get everyone involved in the process. And you look at it politically, we can clearly see that the genesis of the mayor recall originated from employees of this institution. The head of the Democrat Party is part of this institution that helps councilors get on, shapes the political landscape, and we hold and conduct our city business in the same department. That, to me, is something that is not helping, and that's why we're called Colbyville or Greenville. And I think we need to move to change so that everyone feels on board. Revitalization means everyone feeling part of it. Thank you.
Julian, do you feel that we're compromised by sitting up here? Like somehow Colby's got influence over the 7 councilors that preside over these meetings?
No, it's perception, like I said. I mean, this survey was put online today with a 78. I'll talk to people in other communities or, you know, out and about and say, what do you think? Is it just us or this? And they're really surprised that our council chambers is in here. So, and, you know, I tried to put it into perspective of the New York situation. What would happen in New York if the New York Council moved into the bottom of Trump Towers? I know there'd be revolution on the streets. So, you know, it's that image. And revitalization, no one's really anti-Colby. I really don't believe there's any truly anti-Colby people here, anywhere. Colby does a lot of good for the community. But I think this is a fix to avoid the residents calling us Colbyville. And that's how I'd leave it. Thank you.
Just going to make comment. Oh, you go ahead.
No, you don't.
No.
Counselor, go ahead.
After. You go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
Oh,
please.
Dan Libby, Ward 4. Jay, I'll answer that question. I don't know the answer if there's any corruption on this council or if there's any influence. I would say that with the previous council, there are a lot of people that would say that, yes, there was influence on the council. So I'd like to think that that's not the case, but I don't know.
I assure you it's not.
Pardon?
I assure you it's not.
I like to think that, but I would also echo some of the sentiments that were brought here just a few minutes ago. There is a perception problem. When I came here in the first meeting, I said right here that this is what selling out looks like, and that's kind of how it feels. And I think that there is a question of that, especially after this has been 1 year now that I've been coming to meetings in February, and I've seen some things I never thought I'd see. And why would we put ourselves in a position to be questioned? That's what I would ask when I do hear people talk about this as Colbyville. That's concerning to me, and I don't have a problem with Colby. I use the Colby facilities, but why put ourselves in any position where we have to answer to that or potentially be at their influence? I don't see any reason to do that. So I would hope that we would consider it and continue the conversation in future meetings. Thank you.
Kathy Weeks, Ward 1. I agree with what has been said this evening. I do not think this is the proper environment for the citizens of Waterville to be in. I feel like these 7 people need to realize they're representing the residents and not their own agenda like we have seen in the past. I've had many residents say, I won't even come to this building to have the monthly meetings. So I think we need to move forward. I find it hard to believe that the Opera House every Tuesday night is filled.
It's not every Tuesday, but it would be impossible to have regular meetings every single Tuesday from March through June at the Opera House.
So we should check every Tuesday from here until June and make sure that it's full. Another place would be, and Chief Massey, I don't know, that large room in your building, would that be a possibility for us?
It's not large enough. Almost 32 people. And there are some other issues with privacy for people who are in custody, victims,
Okay. Well, I mean, we're just trying to decide. No, I always appreciate you. Or some of the schools. I know in the summer that probably would be a problem, but, you know, if we have to be in a non-city building, Thayer Hospital has 3 auditoriums that would suit our need.
On that, I guess I would just question what the difference would be of being under, then we wouldn't be accused of being under the influence of the hospital. I mean, I think the argument here is to choose either a non-city building or a city building. Is that? I'm just trying to.
Well, at least Thayer isn't, you know, taking over the entire city, and we're not selling our souls out to Thayer Hospital. If we needed to go to a non-city resident. So I'm just throwing it out that we do need to come up with a solution to find a city-owned property for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I will say I have been a lead in partnering with Colby College for the last 4 years. I don't feel like I've sold out by doing so. I feel like I think there are some legitimate arguments and concerns that should be taken into consideration. But I don't want to get accused of selling my soul out either, because I have, you know, worked with willing partners that have stepped forward. And I think we need to be, part of this conversation is, and I'm going to expand and go off on a little tangent here because there's a lot on my mind about it. When we talked about Colby, I guess, what are we talking about? Like sometimes we talk about the people will say, well, the city this or the city that. Well, I don't know if they're talking about me, if they're talking about the council, if they're talking about our employees, are they talking about Mike? Colby College is just as complex of an institution, and there was a lot of moving facets. So I guess I'm just interested in hearing what the specifics are on some of that.
Wtvl Ward 7. Been here for 61 years in Waterville. Attended a lot of city council meetings throughout the years, and it's always been in a city-owned establishment, as far as I can recollect. I agree, Colby has nothing to do with this. I support Colby, I love Colby. They've done a great job with Waterville, but it is turning into Colbyville. If you go on Facebook, there's several sites that keep referring to Waterville as Colbyville. And that irritates me because this is where these are where my roots are. I'm French American, proud of it, live down Ward 7. It irritates me to hear somebody say Colbyville. But I think it's wrong for the city council, and I'm not blaming anybody for having, I don't believe anybody has any interior motive for voting the way they do. I don't. It's done in the past, that I have to admit, but not now. This is a very vibrant council. I think we need to take a look at it as city-owned property. Maybe the airport. Now, I'm chairman of the airport committee, and there's some rooms in there, maybe with a tear down here and a tear down there, that we could hold the city council meetings up at the airport, not in the hangar. Maybe, I don't know. But to have it here, it leaves a very sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. And a lot of people won't come here because they have that tendency to equate Colby with Waterville. And I agree with Mayor Israel. It's a Waterville problem. It's not a Colby problem. Has nothing to do with the city council. But we need to take a look at it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Since the discussion is open, one of the things that was brought up to me a while back, and this is really more, I'm looking for a point of clarification because I don't think anybody's actually confirmed this with me. In our previous city council chambers, people were allowed, our citizens were allowed to exercise their rights and carry firearms. There were times when there were people in the audience I knew that had firearms that made me feel a lot safer when people were threatening me. Is this room, are we able to carry firearms? I wouldn't, unless someone had said it to me, I never would have thought about like disarming in a car if I had been carrying a firearm that day before coming in here.
Somebody asked me that question last week, so I called Colby to ask that question about this room and the ability to bring in firearms. The answer is no.
Is that something that we would be, I've heard, would there be an ability to get a waiver on that, or is that, I've also heard that you can't because there's ties to federal funding. Thank you. This is just a question that's come up, and I'm just trying to make sure the right information's out there.
So, Brian Clark, I'm the Vice President of Planning at Colby. I'm actually fairly well equipped to answer that question. The short answer is no. That waiver would not be possible. So we have a number of guidelines for the use of our spaces both on campus as well as off campus. There are 3 provisions on here that are particularly relevant to this. And I'll just read them. These are from Colby's policies that do apply to the agreement that we do have with the city in this space. So just reading from the document, except for law enforcement, concealed weapons and handguns of any type are prohibited on campus. Next provision, this policy shall not apply to law enforcement officials, supervised educational programs approved in advance by the president of the college or their designee, and persons or programs otherwise approved by the president of the college or their designee. And lastly, this policy shall apply to any campus properties, off-campus properties, buildings, parking lots, and other grounds owned, operated under the control of Colby College.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian.
Again, we're not taking a vote tonight, so I'm enjoying hearing people. If anybody has more points you'd like to make, yeah?
I'd also like to add, too, not to shoot the messenger regards the article in the paper about the Second Amendment, because I didn't make the Second Amendment rules, and I didn't also make Maine an open carry state. So these are valid concerns. I did used to sit next to a lot of people at the council meeting who had guns hanging out of their trousers. Of course, I never wore any because of my shorts, but, you know, this was concerns that we heard, and, you know, people are upset about bringing this issue up, but it's a valid issue in America, and it's a valid issue in Maine with open carry. And, you know, a lot of people might not have realized, but people did carry a lot of guns in the previous council meetings, you know, and that is also a concern for people, because once you ban them, the only people showing up.
I'm glad there's a British person that's been converted here.
Well, you know, the reason I got one and got a concealed weapon permit, which I said I live in a country that I can actually do this, one of the few countries in the world, and if I ever go home or, you know, change my living status, I would have missed out on that opportunity. So I don't think it should be viewed as this, oh my gosh, you know, someone mentioned the Second Amendment. So it's a valid point.
It's Maine. I wouldn't worry about it.
In our meetings. Well, yeah, it's still pretty split, but thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll just cite a couple of statutes for you regarding firearms in public places in school. Title 25, 2011, the state preemptive law prohibits municipalities or towns from enacting ordinances that would restrict people from carrying firearms in public places. such as council meetings and other city-owned properties, you just can't do that. There are some exemptions. So could a person come in here with a concealed weapon or open carry? Yes, they could do that into a council meeting. Title 20A 6552 deals with carrying firearms on a school and school property and how many feet you have to be away from a school to discharge a firearm. But it exempts colleges and universities. They can set through policy or regulations the type of prohibitions they want on weapons, such as you can't carry it at all, you can leave them in your car, as you heard earlier, so they can in fact do that. And so those are those two statutes, and again, Title 25 just says that, you know, a municipality can't say no firearms in City Hall. You cannot carry a firearm in City Hall, you cannot do that. There is some legislation as an LD right now, I think before the legislature, to allow municipalities and towns the ability to put some restrictions in some places on public property, but whether that makes it or not, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Chief, after what you just said, so although the college has a policy, if a citizen were to walk in here with a concealed weapon, they're not actually violating a law.
I'm sorry, say that again, I don't know.
So you said that technically if somebody walked in here with a concealed firearm, they're not technically breaking a law, they're just breaking a policy.
If they walk in here.
Yes.
Right, you would be violating their policy. So they could call us and ask that you be removed. It's just like your home. I can carry in public, I can carry concealed, but it doesn't mean I can go into your home without your permission. And it's the same thing on the universities and the colleges.
Good. Thank you.
All interesting things to consider.
Hillary Koch, I'm Ward 4 now. I think there are two different issues going on. One is just the venue and whether this is the proper venue, and then there's a discussion about whether there should be a venue where people can bring in guns. As far as this venue goes, I think perception is something that the council should be concerned about. I think it was generous of Colby to offer the space, but I think public perception is really important. I personally don't feel that any of you have been compromised, and I can't imagine that you would be by space. But I would say that if public perception makes residents feel uncomfortable, we should all take heed of that. And I actually have a perception issue with it as well. And I also kind of just don't like the venue. In terms of having city council meetings, we're in the back. We can barely see anything. We can barely hear anything. I think the other space, just because of the layout, was better. And if that space isn't available, I think the issue really should be about a space that works for community members to be able to hear what you're saying and to be part of that discussion. And I've been here for a lot of different meetings, and while it's a beautiful space, I actually don't think it's practical for discussions like this. So I think if there's another space, we should consider it.
Thank you, Hillary. Mark, I'm going to limit you here. No, Mark, you're an Oakland resident. I'm not going to, you can't be talking about where we have our council meetings. I'm sorry.
I wasn't going to.
But that's the discussion we're having, Mark.
I wasn't going to make a point as to where you should or shouldn't. The one thing I just wanted to point out as someone that's run for office in Waterville 4 times is I actually had a lot of high hopes for this room. One of my concerns has always been that students, when they vote, are aware of what happens in town policies. And I had been hopeful when the room was set up here, we would see more students here. And I think that would be very constructive, actually, to have students here to where they can actually start to become a little more informed on our local politics. And I've been surprised since I've been coming to the council meetings that we haven't seen that. And I hope Colby, if the chambers remain here, would encourage their students to come and listen to the meetings more. That was all.
Shorter. Hi again. So I didn't want to comment sort of on behalf of Colby with related to the Second Amendment piece, but I did want to share, I sent a letter, an email to the mayor, to the city manager, and to Sid as chair of the council earlier today. I just wanted to read that letter to you guys just for the record for tonight, because this is really Colby's position on this, which is that we actually have no position on this. So as it reads, Dear Nick, Sydney, and Mike, in reviewing the city council agenda for this evening, February 19th, I noted the discussion item under new business regarding the location of city council meetings. Please know that Colby College is supportive of whatever decision the city makes regarding where you meet. I want to be clear that Colby has no position on this issue, that we're entirely agnostic as to where the city chooses to host its meetings. The Chase Community Forum was designed from the beginning to be a resource for the entire Waterville community. And in the 6 months that it's been open, it really has become an important convening space for groups across the city. We anticipate it continuing to serve in that way in the years ahead. And we look forward to continuing our partnership. Thank you for the comments to that, Mr. Mayor, with the city going forward to bring economic vitality to the downtown and beyond. Thanks.
Thank you. I guess my only final comment on it is that I appreciate the discussion. I think people are raising all very important points that we should take into consideration. It may just be that if we are to find a space that meets some of these criteria, like we heard of people being able to see us or hear us in the back and have something more like we had, it might take longer than we'd like. It might require some investment from the city to create a space in one of the buildings we have to do that appropriately and properly. But I think it's a conversation we should probably continue to have. I think it's important. Because it's not just, typically we see a lot of the same faces here, but I know I have heard it out in public when I'm at the grocery store and things like that. Again, nobody necessarily angry at Colby. I think there's just some of these concerns about things being had in city space and wanting to make sure that that some of these perception issues are taken seriously, at least. And I think the council does. Again, we're not taking a vote tonight. That's just my final word. I hope it's a conversation that continues, especially if we're looking towards infrastructure projects and bonding and things like that down the road. This kind of thing is the kind of thing we want to keep in mind while we have those discussions.
Yeah, just a comment. Obviously, we never want to make any constituent feel like they're not being heard. And we definitely, I appreciate people coming here and voicing their opinions and letting us know what they think. From my point, what I want to point out is we have many new councilors here. And as far as perception goes, the constituents should kind of look at it as a new beginning for us to be able to work together to get where we need to go. And giving us the opportunity to do that and show the people that, we are here and that where we sit doesn't determine how we make our decisions, is how we're going to operate as people. And if afterwards, it's always, hindsight is always 20/20, but I can assure you that talking with many of the councilors here, nobody's going to make a decision based on where they're sitting. They're going to be making a decision based on facts and facts only. And that is the approach that I know that myself and many of the councilors have taken, and that they will continue to go with. And I really believe that, if the people have concern, they should continue to come. And hopefully by coming, they will see that the actions of this council are not dictated by where we're sitting, but are rather dictated by the type of actions that we want to see enacted in the city to help the city move forward. Because we are all in here to work together so that we can continue to move as a city and leave the stuff that happened before in the past and work for the people of the city.
Thank you, Councilor.
Mike, where were the council meetings before they were in the center?
Basement of City Hall. And then they moved to the center. Of course, the police department took over most of the space in the basement.
Do you know historically, before, is that going way back, even when they had the aldermen and they were in the basement there, or was there a time that they were in the Opera House? Or do we know historically on that?
You probably know.
Yeah, when I was hired in '87, the council chambers were located downstairs in City Hall. And they were there for several years before the renovation happened, and we took over that space and they went out to the center.
Somebody built you a new space, but not for us. Should have squeezed that in the bond. Come on,
Being
Eric, that's on
61
you.
years old, I remember going because my uncle was Ward 7 counselor, but it was held at City Hall in 1968. So that's quite a ways, 50 years.
Thank you. All right. Is there any further discussion before we move on to our second discussion item? No. Well, thank you, everybody, for your thoughtful comments. I appreciate it, and I'm sure that we will all take it into consideration as we move forward. And if anybody has further issues or questions, I just ask you to stay in regular communication with your city councilor. Next is regarding the recently completed audit report.
And we do have some extra copies of what's up on the screen. Councilor Bofia asked me the other day about this one page from our audit, which we saw briefly 2 weeks ago, and the fact that this one page really summarizes all of the city's, well, not all, but a great part of the city's financial picture is shown here. And so what we wanted to do was just quickly go down through this and, of course, answer any questions you have, since in a month's time, we'll be diving into each and every one of these items one by one by one by one and trying to come up with what we think are reasonable budgets going forward. So I don't know, Patty, can you blow that up a little bit? Because I was just going to talk about the top section first. So you can see the top of this audit report has to do with revenues. Let's go right. Oh, I forgot my. Hopefully I can hold this steady enough so that. Where are we? Am I getting close? Oh.
Can't really see it.
I don't think I'm going to be able to hold steady enough. Anyway, the two columns that you really want to look at are these two: the final budget adopted by the City Council and the actual numbers that came in. Remember, our fiscal year is July 1 to June 30. So last July, August, the city adopted a budget that said we expect to take in $38,000 in revenues, $38,721,000 in revenues. How did we do? Well, pretty good, because we actually collected more in revenues than what we estimated. We collected $39,304, which gave us a surplus in revenues of $582. Estimating revenues is a difficult thing. You never know how many people are going to register their cars. We never know what outside funding is going to come in, state revenue sharing, particularly education subsidy. Those amounts vary. But this was a very good picture for the city of Waterville in the year that ended last June 30, because in total, for revenues, we came out $582,000 better than planned. Are there questions about the revenue piece of our budget before we go down to the expenditures? People okay? All right. These represent our different city accounts. Some are grouped together. For instance, the administration line has a number of different accounts in it, okay? And actually, as you saw at the top of the page where it said draft, this is out of date now because that administration number has changed. Aaron, the auditor, told me today that that number, instead of being 1,567,000, is now 1,001,000 or 2. Yeah, because he pulled some things out of there to put them in different places. But anyway, again, the important thing are the last two columns. The budgeted, the one that says final, there it is. This is a budget the city adopted last August, July, August. Here's the actual. Okay? Some budgets, we had some overages, so where you see numbers in parentheses means we went over. But when you go down to the bottom, you'll see that we ended the year $482,000 better than planned. When you combine the 482 with the additional revenues, 582, you come up with a surplus for the year of 1064, 1,064,000. That's an incredibly important number because it goes right back to this number you see here, the 840. So when the council adopted the budget last year, they pledged $840,000 of surplus or one-time money towards the budget. What this means with the overage of $1,064,000 is we didn't have to spend any of that one-time money in last year's budget. So we now have this 840 going forward to help us in next year's budget. Actually 840 and then an additional amount out of the 1064. So this is good news for us going forward. Is it going to solve all of our budget woes? No, it's not. It will certainly help. I think the city's department heads have been very frugal and careful about their spending. And I don't want to talk too long. In case there are questions, please don't hesitate. Scott? The airport is one of those that's listed in administration. So he's pulling that one out. The other big one that's in that administration, the second line down, is the human resources budget, which is a separate budget. It's combined in administration. Questions? Phil, I know you had some.
No, I don't have a question. It's more a comment. You know, the reason why I wanted to add them on the agenda is to show the people that, you know, despite all the contentious, you know, debates that have been happening over the budget, the department heads of our city are actually doing a great job understanding where the city is as far as revenue goes and expenses. And I've did the necessary work to be able to come in and for us to have a surplus at this time. It shows that, you know, they're not just there to spend money, but they also understand the situation that we're in and are willing to do the work beforehand so that we as a city can continue to move forward. And not only that, it shows that with that kind of mentality, we can come back this year during our budget time, and they can come up with the same mentality that they applied during the past year and come with a budget that will hopefully put us in another situation like this next year. All right, so this is a sign of optimism from the part of our city heads and from our city to be able to come in and work together based on these numbers that we have. And hopefully, you know, we can follow the same process as far as our budget goes, as far as the spending of our different departments. And next year, we can come up with a surplus of $2 million. All right, so I really want to echo that optimism, and just by looking at the numbers and, you know, and making sure that, you know, the people know that the city, the city council and the city department heads are here to work together to try to make sure that we continue, you know, to move forward as a community, but at the same time, make sure that we are fiscally responsible as possibly as we can. So, yeah.
Mike, just another important point that last year, the surplus actually dipped slightly below the 12% minimum. What does this bring us back to? What does this put our surplus to?
12.8 or so.
13.7%.
13.7%.
You're going to have to use your microphone, too.
That's what, I'll repeat, it's 13.7%.
Yep.
Yeah, which is higher, which we've been basically pushing that 12%, just so that.
Right.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Now
for our bond ratings.
For our bond rating, exactly. Yes. Our policy's 12, we're at 13.7.
Yeah.
Well, my taxes we only got as a result of this surplus?
It's too early to tell at this point.
Does the council feel that? Well, you just said there's optimism here. I want to know if there's optimism that like taxes are going to go down as a result of this surplus.
Well, that is one thing that hopefully, from my point, I live here. I would like to see my taxes go down, right? I would very much like that, and I'm sure anybody living here would like to see the taxes go down. And as a council, I'm sure that everybody here wants to make sure that we do whatever is possible to put our city in the best economical situation that we possibly can. And this kind of numbers, because again, we want to make sure that we make decisions based on numbers, right? These numbers show that department heads were very frugal about their spending, and they actually were able to not spend all the money that were allocated to them. So that means this year they can come back, hopefully, right, with budgets that will reflect that same kind of thinking, and will come to us with numbers that will be hopefully numbers that we'll be able to work with, so that hopefully our taxes go down, your taxes and mine.
I would also just say, too, it's right now the legislature is working through a lot. So I don't think we have our arms around what some of these suggestions for like the school budgets mean. Like I know there's additional funding going to education, but then there's the suggestion of actually changing and interfering with our local union contracts from the state level. So. And I know there's people in the legislature who would like to see more, see the revenue sharing go back to what it was supposed to, which was 5%. So there'll be more discussions, but hopefully things move in the right direction there as well. But it's still a little too early to tell where the state legislature is going on that. Yes, Andy?
I love seeing a surplus, but that surplus did not come without tax rates last year. And so, please don't pat yourself on the back too much yet. We all had a tax increase last year, and that's what accounted for the surplus.
That is correct. That is taxpayer dollars. Absolutely.
And can you tell me about when the budget meetings will start?
That's coming up next.
We have a schedule.
Yep. I was going to bring that up next.
We have a schedule. Or did you? Do we have a schedule?
Oh, sure. The schedule is online, but...
You can have my paper copy, Sandy. You bet.
Yeah.
I can get another one.
I'll make sure you make the meeting.
We hope so.
Bob?
Two-part question. What is the Waterville bond rating, and did it go up because of this number?
Our bond rating, I believe, is, and you can help me out, I hope, Mr. Mayor, if I don't get it
Been
right.
like 3 years since the last time I talked to them. Yeah.
I think it's a AA minus, but our rating only changes when we go in for a bond issue to borrow money. Then we get rated at that time, and that's when the rating can change.
And so, like, what happened last time when we bonded 3 years ago? Mike and I had a long discussion with the bonding agency, and one of the discussions we had was they had seen that our reserve had gone down to 12%, and what they cared about was making sure we weren't going below, because that's the policy. And even though you can keep changing the policy had already been changed several times, and their biggest concern was just a matter of that we were staying there. I'd imagine having sustained that for a while, and also with the fact that we've paid down a lot of our debt. Since if you look at our debt schedule, that payment schedule has dropped down significantly. That would have a positive effect on that. Hard to say till you actually get it, but that would be a good estimation.
Any other questions?
I know the council wrote to the legislature to see about returning revenue sharing more fully. I was a little disappointed with 0.5 for the city after it being so contentious. It is our money. Is there a way to lobby to increase that? Is there any plans to see about getting more than 0.5 return to the communities?
Well, we're going to keep pushing as we have done for a number of years. I know Councilor Tate was part of that push.
Yes. Both Representative Colleen Madigan and Representative Bruce White are co-sponsors of bills that are going to be heard before the legislature to bring the revenue sharing amount back up. I know that there will be opportunities to testify in public hearings when those bills come before. I know that fire chief and other concerns, not just from Waterville, but from around the state, are very interested in letting their voices be heard in Augusta, that this money needs to come back to our communities. So that will definitely be something coming down. As far as I know, those hearings have not yet been scheduled, however.
Yeah, I commend the council for putting that forward, and it's a shame to have to debate it every year, not really know where we stand with budgets, it divides communities, and, maybe there could be a bill put in to mandate that it's the full 5% every year, because they're getting 95% from tax dollars, and we're sitting here fighting for, 0.5% of it, and it's hurting communities across the state.
It was scheduled to go back to 5% this year, and at this point, I believe it's just the governor's budget that has a suggestion to put it at 2.5%. So, yeah, I'm sure it'll be a big debate at the state level. I will say, when I've gone to testify in the past, there hasn't been a big line of people there to say, don't give us our revenue sharing, so. Mike?
Anything else?
Manager's report.
May I have the manager's report while I'm right here? Okay, we just talked about budget meeting dates, so in front of you, you have the schedule. And first thing I want to say about the schedule is that those dates, well, I think the dates are firm, but as to which departments come on which days, we may have to make some adjustments, switch departments around. But anyway, this gives you a look at what the next month or two at least. So we start the real budget review March 26. The city and the school are going to have a joint meeting just to talk about budget in an overall way. And this sheet says March 12th, but the school is asked that it be March 7. So if you would change that, please, and if you have a problem that you know of now, could you say so? Otherwise, we'd like to shoot for March 7. Does that sound okay with everyone? So March 7th, we'll meet at the school cafeteria. I'm not sure I'm getting the name right, the vocational cafeteria.
Mid-Main Cafe.
Mid-Main,
Cafe.
and I'm sure Mr. Payne knows the name of it too. The Mid-Main.
Cafe.
Technical Center. You drive around the back, and I believe they're also providing food, so.
Yep, so we're
Good
going to
food.
have, we've done this in the past. We didn't do it last year, but that's right, there will be a meal put on by the students, and then a budget presentation and overview. Thursday, March 7. Very good. The
7 o'clock.
actual budget presentation, yeah, 6:30 or 7. I don't know, do you remember, Julian?
The board usually meets at 6, and the meal is usually served at 5:30.
Actually, David Boardman at 5:30 is going to put on something for, about what he does at the school.
Yeah.
And then the meal is at 6, and I think the budget overview starts at 6:30.
Yeah, so if you want the meal and the presentation.
Sandy, you're going to have to change that on here.
I can get hold of Eric and let you know.
Well, actually, Eric sent me the email, and I haven't forwarded it, but I will. Yep. So basically, it's
They're all public.
5:30, March 7.
5:30, you said? 5:30?
Yeah.
5:30. Pretty sure. You'll get an email very soon. All right. Other meetings coming up tomorrow is the Solid Waste Committee meeting at 4 at City Hall. Okay. Pretty soon we have to have a Finance Committee meeting, hopefully next week, if that works for Finance Committee members. Next week, Finance Committee. Want to let you know the Farmers Market has decided to move from where they've been on Common Street for a couple of years now to Hedda Falls. And they're going to be in the parking lot in back of, I always call it the Sentinel building. Well, the Sentinel's still there, but it's owned by someone else. But they'll be in that parking lot at Hedda Falls. Okay? Last thing, certainly not the least thing, number of you have talked about having some kind of a strategic planning meeting. Seems like people are very interested in that. I've talked to the fellow, Craig Freshley, who did the last one, which was March 2014. So here we are 5 years later. Probably time for us to take a look at what the goals were that the council felt back then. Look at those. Are they still applicable, still current? If not, let's talk about something different. And then, of course, the other questions, how do we work together to go through the difficult things we face, budget and other things. So I need to talk further with you all about if you want to do it on an evening or a Saturday. Back then, we did it on a Saturday, and it was a 9:30 to 2:30. And when I talked with Craig yesterday, he said it can be a 3-hour, 4-hour block. Could be in the evening, could be on a Saturday. People have strong feelings at this point. But we should commit soon, because he's worked for City of Augusta and Gardner, and he's going to be doing Falmouth and South Portland. So he's really developed a strong niche in terms of doing this with municipal governments. Saturday?
Saturday.
You tell us when to be there.
I'm sorry?
You tell us where to go and when to be there, we'll be there.
All right.
It might be nice, for the public who's sometimes, they're used to having to go out on weeknights, to have people who may not normally have that availability to show up on a Saturday.
Yep. And these are public meetings, okay? They're public meetings, because whenever this group meets, it's a public meeting, except if it's something about executive session. Strategic planning is not a matter for executive sessions, so they're public meetings. And we'll make sure we advertise them. Okay, this looks like a Saturday, hopefully in the next month. That was it for me, unless questions?
Nope. All right, finally, we have community notes. Community notes is a time where if anybody has something they'd like to say or tell us about that is not on the agenda that we've discussed tonight, now would be the time to do it. We ask you to just come up and tell us your name and what you have to say. And Councilor Tate, you're a go. No.
Can I do it from here?
You're on the mic. You got the mic.
Thanks. I just wanted to invite everyone and make everyone aware about an event that I am helping organize next Thursday, February 28th. It's a community forum on the opioid crisis in our community, working with members of the Maine Coalition for Sensible Drug Policy. And the idea is to bring people together to talk about how this issue is impacting our community and what proposals are being developed, what programs are being developed to try to address these issues. That's going to be next Thursday at 6:30 here in this room. We're going to have our very own Police Chief Joseph Massey talking about Operation Hope. We have Gordon Smith coming, who is the Director for Opioid Response for the state of Maine. Representative Charlotte Warren, who is the state representative for District 84 and a member of the Criminal Justice Reform Committee. And we're also having Lisa Halley speak, who is a well-known community member here in Waterville, although now she lives, I believe, in Oakland. But her family has suffered the tragic loss of her nephew last November, so she's going to be talking about because of a drug overdose and talking about their experience actually on the night before he was supposed to enter into treatment. So it's been a real loss for them and for our community. So hopefully the intention is to kind of open up space to talk about this issue. There's a lot of stigma, a lot of shame for many people who are struggling with these issues in our communities. So I just wanted to let you know that this is happening, and I hope you can all come out to support. Thank you.
Just want to share some of the work that, in regards to some of the work that I do with the Habitat for Humanity. We, like some of you know, we finished our last build a couple of months ago. Maggie and her 2 kids are now the proud owner of that house. So now we are in the next phase and looking to build our next house. So if you know anybody who is low income, lives in the community or surrounding town, who might be benefiting from a brand new home built by Habitat, please direct them to our website or have them stop at the Restore here in Waterville. Give us their information. We would love to. There's a process that we go through as far as selection, and we are hoping that by this time next year we will have another family, in a brand new home that was built by Habitat. So if you know somebody, please. For some reason, before I joined the group, there weren't that many applicants. You would think there would be a line at the door for people who'll be looking for a house that is built with brand new everything for them. So if you know somebody, please let me know. You can let me know, or you can go to our website or stop at the Restore and submit an application for it.
Great, thank you. Mr. Libby, you've been...
That's all right. I was anxious. It's getting late. Dan Libby, Ward 4. I do have a suggestion. Hopefully in the future we can also have meetings where the town, well, I guess we come up and speak last, rather than have the manager report be last on the agenda. It might be nice to have the people have the last word. That'd be great. And then I do have a question. What is the process for reviewing whether or not we feel the town manager is meeting the requirements of his position?
I guess that would be a duty of the council under the city charter. Is that correct, Mike?
Well, okay. Yeah. Well, with that, then I'd just like to...
I think the last time we did a review was 2 years ago when Mike's contract was renewed.
I think it may be time to do a review. Recently there's been some scandal regarding our town manager with regard to permits, with regard to working with the Sustained Mid-Maine Coalition and providing free space for them. Also working with the former town chair, council chair to try to get a vote past the people in the town, coordinating it in such a way. So if I had that kind of behavior, in my position, working against the people of the town for whom I work, I would question the person in that position. It's not for me a question of whether or not I like Mr. Roy. It's a question of whether or not I trust him. And he's already tonight, even with the agenda, with the audit that he's presenting, he's asking us to ignore certain numbers. I'd like to have the real story, more often than not. It seems like you have to do a lot of backtracking with him. And so, the council has asked tonight to be based on its merits. So I would ask that we do the same thing with our town manager. In the last year, we have voted to keep our mayor. We have voted to not add ordinances to this town, and we voted in a new town council. I think it's time to take a look at our town manager. Thank you very much.
Mr. Longstaff. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Tom Longstaff, Ward 6. Just in case nobody had heard, after your approval of the resolution a couple of weeks ago, the State Committee on Transportation voted unanimously to approve the renaming of the bridge out of Main Street. It now goes on to the House and Senate, where everybody expects that it will be the same with a unanimous approval. Your support was very important. Couldn't go forward without it. And I'll keep you informed as the process unfolds. I'm watching it, but I thought you'd like to know that you took that resolution, it was received, and the vote was unanimous to approve it. Thank you.
That's great news.
Yeah, well, thank you.
So I'm guessing the council as well, if they're hearing concerns about a city manager, you hear from your constituents, and also if they're doing a good job, you hear, so you get feedback when it's time to review people. It's not just out the blue, right? You hear from constituents, you hear the good, you hear where people need to work on things, but it brings me back to the school board, that the Waterville School Board, I'm going to be pushing for and have mentioned that we now review our superintendent, because prior we didn't. With the AOS, it was done by the AOS who reviewed the superintendents of Waterville. So now we have to set up a review where the Waterville School Board has to judge, how to review, how to do it respectfully, and how to be constructive and give positive feedback, things to work on, and just general feedback. So that's something that I'm going to be bringing back to the school board.
I know you have a good relationship with some members in RSU 18. I think they just went through this and have a pretty good process down, so you might reach out to them.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. And a superintendent, I haven't had a problem all the time that I've worked with Eric, so you know, but it's definitely something that needs to be done, so, thank you.
Thanks.
Kathy Weeks, Ward 1. I just have 3 quick things. A very important time limit, February 25th, the U.S. Senate is going to be voting on S-311, which is a bill designed to protect the born-alive abortion survivors. And time is of the essence to call Senator Collins and Mr. King. I do have some flyers here if anyone is interested. I didn't feel at liberty just to pass them out, but this is a very important bill that needs to be passed.
This is the Born Alive protection.
Yes.
Yeah, thank
so
you.
we're not murdering.
Yeah.
And that is the
Live
truth.
babies, yeah.
Murdering, yes. The second thing is, Phil, I know you haven't been on board for a long time, but I do need to have you realize the high price our mayor and his wonderful family has paid for the actions of the previous council. And that just doesn't go away overnight. So I would like you to have the understanding of that. We have a wonderful family of the Isgrove family and children, and the children have suffered also during this. So I am thankful that the Ward 1 councilor, he does listen and, you know, we have a great working relationship together. But I do want to remind everybody, you are not there as prima donnas, whatever you want to do. You've got to listen to your residents. Sid, I think you will hear more from Ward 4 about where the meeting should be. So, and the last thing, and I just have a question. At the meeting the last time, it was brought up and given to all of the councilors, 1,600 resident signatures about asking Colby for some tax relief. So where does that stand? Because it's not on any agenda item at this point.
We did have, since then, we did have a finance committee meeting, and one of the things that we talked about, and actually Councilor Thomas is the one who brought it up, is we are looking to organize some kind of approach to the nonprofit community in general, but we want to make sure we show up with facts and statistics when we do that, but it is something that is being taken very seriously. And
well, when I met with Ward 1 residents and a longtime Waterville family, they said to me, about 12 years ago, there were service fees for the hospitals, for every nonprofit entity that used either the police or the fire department. And they specifically named which counselor at that time brought it up that, oh, we don't need that money. And whoever was sitting in the Ward 5 chair at the time was the person that killed off the service fees. So I thought that was a very interesting fact. So yes,
I will definitely look into that. I'm not aware of that because I know I've talked about service fees for years and seem to have talking in circles, so.
Yeah, no.
Right, I mean, as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm aware, it's the state law. We are not allowed by statute to charge service fees.
I think that is correct. Maybe there was a voluntary agreement that had been in place. It sounds like there might have been, which we could.
Right, so something to look at. And I agree with Mrs. Sullivan. We shouldn't be throwing confetti at these numbers because it was of a tax increase, which the residents are not going to pay another tax increase this year. And we have our poor police department in need of items and our fire department in need of items. So let's not break out the champagne over those numbers. So thank you so much.
Okay, I had a question. You've made a comment to me in regard of the situation of the mayor. I'm just not understanding what it relates to, as far as the hardship that the mayor faced with his family and the situation that he had. That has to do. I don't understand how it relates to me, and what was the comment directed
Well,
towards?
your comment, we need to forget the past. Well, that's great. We need to move on.
Okay.
But this family has suffered greatly. greatly and paid a high, high price for some evil that sat around this table in the past.
Okay.
And, you know, even went to the city attorney, and I was thinking the other day, who paid for that city attorney's time when 3 people went to him? Which is another question that would be very interesting to know the answer to.
Oh, no, I agree. I mean, like I said, my thing will always be, we need to work together. We need to do whatever needs to be done, right? To pass a message of positivity.
Yes.
And
I mean, that's
while
nice
reflecting, using the things that happened before, you know, to hopefully help us move forward, right? Because what I've seen with many times when I come to city councils is we always go back and we never really propose solutions to move forward, right? We argue the things of the past, but we don't work on working together and coming up with things that will help us, you know, as a community, as a body of council to move forward. And I'm not saying that we should disregard what happened, but also at the same time, when we point at things that are bad, right, we should also come up with things, you know, that are positive and things that will help us also move forward while not forgetting things that happened before.
No, I agree with you.
Okay.
But this family is still in need.
Okay.
And it's nice to drink the Kool-Aid around the table, but, you know, we need to make sure this never, ever happens again. And I do agree. I think it is time to look for a new city manager. So, thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?